Alrighty, it looks like we are right at 1 o'clock Eastern, so we can go ahead and get started with today's webinar. Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are Boatmart, and we're so excited to share some really great insights today into the state of the boating industry, as well as more information about our new pay-per-lead model for dealers. My name is Nicole Gilmet, Marketing Director for Trader Interactive, parent company to Boatmart, and I'll be your webinar moderator today. And first, we'll just walk through some quick housekeeping before we get started. So on your screen, you're going to see a control panel like the one shown here, and you can adjust your audio and your controls. And also throughout the webinar, if you think of any questions, please type them into the question section of the control panel, and we will address them and read through them at the end. And just to note, we are recording this webinar and it'll be shared with all of you via email as well. All right, so now I would like to introduce Chris Thomas, who will be leading today's webinar. Chris is our National Account Director at Boatmart, and he's been working in the marine industry for over 20 years, leveraging his expertise in marketing, sales, and business development to drive dealer growth and success. So without further ado, I will pass the mic over to Chris to kick off today's webinar.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you everybody for joining us today. Just to let you guys know, just a little agenda for today, we're gonna kind of run through who Boatmart is and kind of how we came about and why that matters to you guys as dealers. We're also going to run through some items as far as the introduction to our pay-per-lead model, why we're moving into that model and how that impacts your business, and then at the end, we'll open it up for some questions. So really, today's webinar is not so much to go into merchandising so much, but really to explain our process here at Boatmart and how we operate and how that relates to you as dealers. I also want to let you know that you guys have all been assigned account managers, and if you guys have extra questions, that you think of tomorrow, you guys are more than welcome to reach out to those account managers, and they can explain PPL as well. I'm also available anytime you guys need me. If you guys have questions, you can reach directly out to me as well, and I'm happy to have a little bit deeper of a conversation with you on that. With that being said, Boatmart has established themselves as the fastest growing marine marketplace in the US. We know, and we talk to dealers on a daily basis, and we know that you guys are looking for alternatives out there now more than ever and more aggressively than you ever have. And we're open to the way we work and how we do business, and we are devoted to developing ways to become that alternative for you guys in every way possible and just drive as much response as we can to your business. We just a couple little tidbits about us. In 2024, our network of dealers grew by over 81%. We are just over about 1,000 dealers in our network right now across the US, and our dealer leads actually grew over 92% last year. This upcoming year, we are going to stay very aggressive in that mindset, even more than last year. We are committed to driving as many leads for our dealers as possible and connecting you guys with as many consumers as possible. So challenges that we know are happening in the market, consumers' buying behaviors are changing on a yearly basis. They're becoming more savvy. They are expecting instant gratification as far as submitting leads and connecting with the dealers. We know that that doesn't always happen. There's obviously retail and economic factors that are going on right now and have been for the last couple of years, whether that be high interest rates. We know that inventory continues to be a challenge. There are very high levels of inventory that really we haven't seen in the industry since 2018, 2019. And you combine those with the fact that our competitors are constantly raising their rates, and the cost of advertising your inventory has become more expensive than ever, and in some cases unaffordable for dealers to even advertise their inventory in an effective way with those platforms. And we also obviously know, along with economic factors, that there's seasonality issues that go along with that as well. And so some of the things that we'll go over today kind of address not only the economic factors, but also those seasonality issues. We know that right now there's obviously a huge opportunity for us in the marketplace to partner with our dealers, and some of the challenges that I just talked about kind of opens up that opportunity for us. We are owned by a company called Car Group out of Australia, and they operate worldwide in the automotive sector. And there's a deep, thorough understanding of how to make a marketplace work as far as they're concerned. And the models that we're going to go over today as far as PPL and explain to you guys really kind of show that there's a low risk going towards this model, and there's a really high reward process as far as you being on this model as a dealer. So just some information about us and who we are. We are completely consumer obsessed in our marketplace, and we are doing everything possible to make sure that we connect our dealers with consumers and make sure that we're doing everything we can to engage that consumer when they're on our site as much as possible. Our platform is really all about transparency and anything we can do to make sure that we are delivering a relevant piece of inventory to the consumers. And when you go through our site, there's really no gimmicks, no games. It's just very straightforward, and we want to connect you guys with the consumers. So just some information about us. We have over 30 years of industry experience. We have multi-realm shoppers across our platforms, and we'll get into some of those companies as well a little further along. We know that right now the platforms that are out there that we compete with are becoming outdated, and we know that with that comes a huge opportunity with what we're doing. We continue to invest in our SEO and our SEM. If you look at the number of indexable pages on our site, I know some of you guys probably know this, but we were originally Boatline, and in February of 2024, we rebranded the site and became Boatmart. And at that time, we had about 12,000 indexable pages on Google. Today, we have just over 1.2 million, and that just goes to show that our SEO value continues to go up, and obviously that's a very key critical component to our business. We also provide our dealers with access inside what our consumers are doing and what they're searching for, and we're able to provide them with some of those insights and market analysis. And we also offer lead enrichment, which is where the dealers can actually go in and get valuable information on specific leads that are submitted and what those leads are doing and what that customer's journey looks like as they move through that sales funnel. So a little bit about our company. We're owned by Trader Interactive. We're also part of the Car Group. We have extensive knowledge in the marketplaces, and if you actually take a look at the next slide. So just some of the companies that are part of our company: RVTrader.com, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, CycleTrader.com. If you look at some of these companies, it kind of feels like everything is coming full circle, because back in the day, the company that owns us now actually helped develop the original Boat Trader before it was sold off a couple times, and eventually became Boats Group. Commercial Truck Trader, Equipment Truck Trader, Snowmobile Trader. We even go as far as, if you have a plane to sell, we can help you sell that as well. And then Stat Survey, which is just our company that provides analysis on registration data throughout the industry, and we have a ton of data on that as far as registrations per state and boat type and things like that with Stat Survey. So we actually offer some pretty valuable resources in the marine industry as well. So our goal, unlike other platforms, is we don't do anything to manipulate the search algorithms or get into any kind of games like that. Our approach is very straightforward. If the boat is relevant to the customer and what they're searching for, we want that boat to show up first. We just want to create that consumer engagement and keep them on our site as long as possible. And we feel like this kind of creates some customer trust, and they keep coming back to us when they do those searches for things they're looking for. And so we're pretty straightforward with how we operate. So just getting a little bit into our pay-per-lead model and what that looks like for you guys. And really just, there's some numerous reasons why we decided to take this approach. Our parent company, the Card Group, started this with the automotive industry and had huge success with it through the years, not only from their point of view, but also from the dealer's point of view. It showed that there was a partnership there that was based around full transparency. And we decided that when we relaunched Boatmart, that we were going to need to stand out in the industry and have a product and a pricing structure that was unlike anything in the marine industry. And so we decided to move to the pay-per-lead model. And really, we're going to show you how it works, but really show you that you're really going to pay for what you get, and it's just going to be qualified leads that come in, and that's the model that it's going to be that you're going to pay on. So in the past, a lot of companies have moved to a pay-per-click or a pay-per-impression, and that's obviously become pretty popular with a lot of places and how they do business. And really, pay-per-lead kind of takes that one step further. And instead of paying for a click that might not actually turn into a lead, or paying for an impression that you might not even get a click for, we feel that it's fair to charge our dealers for leads only. And so anything that comes into the dealership that's a phone call or an email form, that's how they'll be charged. So why go to a pay-per-lead model? And that's kind of the question that we get from a lot of our dealers. A few different factors that are worth pointing out. So obviously seasonality is a huge thing in our industry. And unlike the automotive industry, boats are a niche market, and not everybody needs a boat. And unfortunately, we probably have more boats out there than there are buyers. And so when you're dealing with seasonality, and you look at some of the traditional subscription models that are out there, like some of our competitors offer, you may pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, and that business doesn't care whether it's March or April or May, or whether it's September or October, November, December. They're going to want that $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 every month, whether your leads are slow during that time or not. And so that's a challenge with dealers, and one that is real, and dealers face that all the time, and more so with dealers up north. But seasonality is an issue all over our country, whether we want to believe that or not. And so that was the biggest thing. The other thing was just from an accountability standpoint. You know, when you're in a subscription model, that business has no real motivation to perform any better for you, right? And there's a lot of built-in fluff that are in those contracts, and sometimes you don't even realize what you're paying for, or might not even get what you're paying for. And with us, there's accountability. You know, we want to deliver as much value as possible and deliver you as many qualified leads as possible, because at the end of the day, if we don't do that, then we don't get paid. So what does that look like? So our dealers will pay a $99 a month membership fee, which that will be per rooftop, and that will allow you to keep your inventory active, whether that be you manually putting it on there, or in most cases, us taking a feed from your website provider. And then after that, you're only paying for leads that land in your inbox. So if a phone call comes in or an email comes in, that's what you're paying for. On average, these leads come out to $35 most of the time. They fall into that bucket. The benefits for our dealers is, you're not going to have that subscription fee and a bunch of high costs that are out of season, during those months of August through December, when we kind of see a decline in the amount of boat buyers in the market. No more annual rate rises. So this is obviously a huge topic right now within our industry, are the rising costs of advertising. And that's going to go away with us. And obviously, on average, our leads close at a 1 out of 10, turn into a sale. And so the cost per sale right now with us is right around $350. We do know that some of our competitors are coming at you guys with cost per sale as high as $1,000 in a lot of cases. And that's kind of their business model and what they work around. So definitely a drastic decrease as far as cost per sale with us. Commitment, we offer you guys no long-term commitment. You guys can come off of your agreement with us as long as we get a 30-day notice at any time throughout the year. We're not going to lock you in. We are able to direct leads into a CRM. We do that in a HTML format or an ADF format. And we just feel like the cost per lead model aligns with our dealers' businesses better than anything that's out there right now. And that's one of the reasons that we decided we were going to go to it. So the pricing kind of looks like this, and these are not set in stone. We are completely open to suggestions, and it's a little bit of a learning process talking to our dealers and things like that. Right now, as it stands, budget listings means that anything that is up to $2,000 as far as the cost of the boat, those leads will be charged just $1 for that lead. Anything from $2,000 up to $10,000, those leads will come in at $10 per lead. And then this is probably the biggest bucket that most of our leads fall into. Boats that are priced anywhere from $10,000 to $75,000, those will be priced at $35 per lead. And then anything over $75,000, those will actually fall into that bucket of $55 per lead. So obviously we want to deliver as many high qualified leads as we can into our dealers. And ultimately we know that in order for us to succeed, we have to make you guys succeed. And that's really our main focus, is we want to deliver as many highly qualified leads as we can into your guys' inbox on a daily basis. So I wanted to just touch a little bit on merchandising and what that looks like with us. So we have a commitment to you guys to not only educate you, but show you the best practices in driving more page views to your listings, getting more clicks on your listings, and ultimately driving more leads from those listings. So when you guys open up Trader Tracks, which we'll get into in just a little bit, we know that obviously a listing that has 10 or more photos gets 2.5 times more clicks on it than a listing that has less than 10 photos. The other thing that is obviously a challenge in our industry, just from a standpoint of the manufacturers and pricing and things like that, we do know that a boat that has a price on it gets 13 times more page views when there's an actual price listed and not just call for price. And we're encouraging our dealers right now, even if it's MSRP, you're better off putting that than putting call for price. Call for price has turned into, I'm not sure if I want to call because I'm a little scared that that price is going to be too high. What we're finding talking to a lot of our dealers is that the buyers are educated enough right now that they kind of have an idea of what that boat costs. And when they see MSRP, they're more likely to call because they know that that's most likely not the price that they're going to pay for that boat. So we are encouraging our dealers to be able to put price on there whenever possible. And obviously we want to attract and engage more buyers for you guys and ultimately have that turn into a lead for you guys. So just getting into TraderTrax. TraderTrax is our proprietary backend reporting suite. And so we developed this really to allow you guys to have full transparency into what we're delivering for you guys. So when you get into TraderTrax, it's not only just a reporting tool that reports how many impressions you're getting and how many clicks you're getting and how your inventory is doing, but we're also able to provide you with tools where you can assign leads to salespeople in the lead management portion of it. We do lead enrichment wherever we can with our customers. And so we have insights into that customer with that lead that they've submitted where they can, the salesperson can go in there before they actually back out to the lead, and they can see that this particular customer has been on our site for X amount of days. They've been searching for bow riders and also pontoons. And oh, by the way, their price range is between $20,000 and $35,000. And so there's a lot of insight that you guys can actually log in and see about that particular customer. We're able to give you individual health performance on each one of your listings. So when you go in, we're able to give you an individual health report that says, hey, this particular listing that you guys have needs more photos, and it will be more relevant in the search results if you guys have more photos and have a price on it. So we're able to provide you guys with that stuff inside TraderTrax as well. We also have marketing insights that allow you to analyze your inventory and see how it stacks up based on what the consumers are searching for in your particular market. And then obviously you guys are able to get in and manage your inventory and set your dealer profile settings and do things like that within TraderTrax as well. Just some things that we did and kind of a study that I want to share with you guys. We obviously, our parent company is pretty embedded in the automotive industry, and we know in the marine industry, unfortunately, we're usually as a whole about 2 years and sometimes 3 years behind the automotive industry. So we took advantage of their resources, and we used the same company that they use to survey their dealers, and we used them to survey our consumers that submitted leads to our dealers on Boatmart last year. And so we did this survey for about 6 months. And what we found after that 6 months was pretty staggering. 73% of the consumers that submitted a lead on Boatmart actually planned to buy within 1 month. And we also knew from asking them, they expected to be contacted back within 24 hours. Yet 70% of those customers actually told us that even after 72 hours that they had not been contacted by that dealer. What's even crazier is if you take this a step further, almost half of those customers that hadn't been contacted after 72 hours still hadn't been contacted after 28 days. And so it just goes to show that we do have an issue in our industry with lead follow-up. And I think what stood out with this whole study more than anything for me was that this was in a year in 2024 where leads were very hard to come by. Selling a boat was very difficult, and yet we still had a lot of dealers out there that were having trouble with follow-up. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's anybody's fault, and sometimes dealers get too busy or they're short-staffed and things like that. This was kind of another factor in why we went to a PPL, is I think that there is some accountability that PPL kind of puts on the dealership to make sure that they are following up with that lead and that they're not just calling them back, you know, for 1 week or 2 weeks, but they need to know that even after 28 days that that buyer is still interested in buying a boat. They just need a dealer to simply reach out to them. So when you do a PPL, it kind of puts in the dealer's head like, hey, I'm paying for these leads. I got to make sure I'm maximizing value as much as possible with each lead. And I think it enhances the follow-up and creates a better consumer experience for our buyers that are shopping on our site. So we are continuing to invest in Trader Tracks. We obviously have the dealer-facing lead management and the insights tools. We have redone the user interface so that it's easier to navigate around. This has helped streamline the workflow. We are providing more tools to help you guys manage those leads and gain those insights into those individual customers before you even call that customer back. We really feel like if we can know as much as possible about the customer before we call him back, that callback is going to be much more comfortable when talking to them and make it more likely that that customer actually sets up an appointment to come in and look at that piece of inventory. So I think that's about it. I think at this time we can open it up for some questions, which I'm sure.
Yes, I
Some of you
am.
guys have right now.
Awesome. All right, we will jump into the questions. We've got a few coming in, but again, just wanted to send a reminder that you will be receiving a copy of this webinar, so keep an eye out for that in your inboxes. And additional feedback, if you think of anything after this call, feel free to email us at marketing@boatmart.com and we can get you in contact with the right folks on our team. And so while we're giving folks a couple minutes to enter their questions, I'll start with the first few that I've got here. So Chris, the first question is, how does your proposed cost per lead compare to the competition?
Yeah, so great question. We did do our due diligence and our research before we just came up with, we didn't just come up with the pricing on the pay per lead. If you look at the main competitors that are out there, and you look at what they're charging and what leads they're generating for their dealers from dealers we talk to on a daily basis, most of the time an average lead that comes into a dealership is going to push $100. And so we knew that we were going to need to be lower than that, stand out in the market. And so that's why our average lead is actually at $35. So we're substantially lower.
Awesome. Second question I've got here is, I've noticed there's no dealership branding on Boatmart, and why is that?
Yeah, so another great question and one that we get on a daily basis. So obviously we call it a blind model. And when you go to a pay per lead, as I had just alluded to the fact that our cost per lead is substantially lower than the competitors that are out there. And in order to get to that price at the pay per lead and make you guys comfortable in what you're paying for, we needed to make sure that we were maximizing value. And so we do need to make sure that we are getting credit for those leads that are coming in. And so we do remove branding off of the individual listings. The consumer does know that they're submitting a lead to a dealer as opposed to a private seller. And they do know how far from their location that specific dealer is. So I guess in theory, they could probably, if they did their research, figure out what dealer they were reaching out to. But in our case, that is why we go to the blind model, because it is the pay per lead.
Awesome. We've got a few more trickling in here. The first is an inquiry about somebody's currently receiving 3 emails for every lead, which seems redundant. So any thoughts on that, Chris? We can look into.
Yeah, and that's something I should have touched on in the presentation. So we do not charge for duplicate leads. And I think I want to say it's 7 days after, if it's within that 7-day window and they submit, Bob calls you on a Monday and he's got a question about a Sea Hunt Game Fish 25, and he calls back on Tuesday because he remembered one more question that he has, or he's ready to set up an appointment. The system does recognize that and does remove those duplicates from the system.
Awesome. Okay, another question we have is, what websites do we have an API with to receive a feed from, and what dealer management systems do we integrate with?
Yeah, so right now, as far as dealer management systems, we cannot send leads to Lightspeed as far as I know, and I think we might be working on that. There are most of the CRMs that are out there, we are able to send leads to in an ADF format or HTML. DP360, I know we send leads to. As far as lead ingestion, so taking a lead from your website into ours, Dealer Spike is very common right now. I would say that's a huge majority of our dealerships. Boats Group, we cannot accept a feed from, nor will they give us a feed. And then ARI, we can accept a feed from. Trailer Central, we can accept a feed from. And there's a pretty big list of providers, and I'm happy to share. I think we have that complete list. I just don't have it in front of me of who we can accept and who we can't. For the most part, if it's one of the major providers that are out there right now that the dealerships are using, MDS is another one that we are able to ingest a feed from. For the most part, the major ones that are in the boating industry right now that you guys are using, we are able to accept a feed from. And if there are some out there that we're unsure of, we're happy to do some testing, and most of the time, more often than not, we can take the feed.
Perfect. Thanks, Chris. Another question is, how do you protect us in paying for leads outside of our territory that we can't sell the new boat to?
Yeah, so this has obviously been a topic for a few years now as far as out of territory sales and things like that, and really became a major topic during COVID because there was such a shortage of new boats, and buyer A would call all over the country trying to find a boat, and a lot of times they weren't able to buy that boat. So I think that there's a couple opportunities there. If a customer calls and it's on a boat that's out of territory, one, is there a different brand that you might be able to move them into? And the second thing is with the internet, nothing's perfect as far as advertising on the internet, right? And there's always going to be leads that come in from out of market. And whether those can be moved on or not, more often than not, they can't. But we do have a system in place, and if those become redundant or they get out of control, we are going to have a system in place where you guys can dispute, and you guys can call us and say, hey, I'm getting a ton of leads from out of market. I can't move on these boats, and we know there's going to be specific instances, and we want to be a partner with you guys. And so if there are instances like that, we can address those. But just like any other source of marketing, I think it goes back to the subscription model where, you might be paying $4,000 a month to advertise on a competitor's site. And I can guarantee you that if you call them tomorrow and say, hey, I got 20 leads this month from out of market, they're going to say, hey, your $4,000 is still due. And so, we're willing to work with you guys, and we know that that's going to be a concern. But I think with all internet advertising, you're always going to run into getting out of market leads.
Awesome. Another lead related question is, if I list a boat with no price and ask customers to call for the price, what do we charge for that lead?
Yeah, another good question. So those are going to fall under our $35 per lead model. And so that's obviously the biggest bucket of leads that we see come in. So we are going to put those under there. And again, we encourage you to put the price, but we know there's going to be some times where you can't, and those would just fall under that $35 cost per lead.
Great. We've got a couple more questions here. So another one, this one's about competitors. So can you identify competitors at that $100 lead comparison cost, and what are you attributing as a cost per lead to Craigslist and a dealer's own website?
Yeah, so when you're talking, I'll just I'll address the first part, which is the $100 per lead. I think that's I don't know what you want to call it, but probably one that everybody knows the answer to already. And so I'm not gonna name drop, but I'll just leave that one at that. As far as Craigslist, we have actually done some studies with Craigslist and Facebook actually, because I think Facebook is a more viable source now than Craigslist is. But we've done some studies specifically with some dealers on Facebook, and have found that, I think we had an instance last week where we actually had a sales rep that dug in with his dealer and actually analyzed some of the Facebook leads that came in. And I think he got this specific dealer got a ton of leads from this Facebook ad. And I think that he sold the boat off of Facebook, but it took him like 400 leads or something is what they came up with to be able to sell this boat. And at the end of the day, this was kind of eye-opening to the dealer because he didn't realize that all of those leads were coming from where they did. And so he actually said to us, he goes, man, there's no way that I have enough staff to be able to answer, that many inquiries. And the amount of inquiries that he had to go through and just, questions that were being asked on the boat and non-qualified leads and things like that, he couldn't believe all the stuff that he had to go through just to sell that boat through social media. And I think that's the same with Craigslist. There's not real consumer engagement there. It's very hard to search. It's very clunky. You can't really narrow down what you're looking for. And so that's where, those are more high funnel buyers and kind of just daydreamers. And with us, we kind of go after that mid to lower funnel buyer that is already kind of through the process and kind of knows what they want. And that's who we target in a lot of our SEM campaigns and our social campaigns. So, but a good question.
Awesome. So a follow-up question to earlier about Lightspeed. Do we know when we think we'll be set up with Lightspeed?
I don't know if I can't really answer that because we're kind of we're exploring other sources that we can take feeds from and be able to deliver leads to. I don't have an answer to that. I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with that and get a little more info on where we are with that. We're constantly trying to have that part of the business evolve because we know that it's a convenience factor for you guys, and without those sort of things, it's just not as appealing. But I'm happy to have some follow-up with you and get more information on that.
Perfect. Another question is, how do we drive customers to our site by SEM, or are we relying on listings information to come up in search?
No, so another good question. So, we have obviously various channels that we do marketing on, and obviously, Google and SEM and SEO. From the SEO side of it, which is, very important as far as your organic traffic, the same developers that we have working on the sites like rvtrader.com, which, has close to the amount of traffic that Boats Group does combined. Those are the same SEO developers that we have working on Boatmart. And so that's great news, right? And I think that our organic traffic alone is up substantially year over year from where it was last year in January and February. I want to say that January it's up like 600%. So very, very high growth as far as the SEO. From an SEM standpoint, yes, there's different things that we do, and obviously we target specific brands, specific models. I was down at the Miami Boat Show 2 weeks ago and was talking to a dealer, and we just happened to, he was talking about a Sportsman 267 OE, and we just happened to Google one, to bring it up, and we were the 7th result in organic, and so we have tremendous effort and a very high commitment to SEM coming up in 2025. And we're going to be very aggressive, a lot more aggressive. 2024 was a huge year for us. We're going to be much more aggressive in 2025, making sure that we are going after specific models and specific boat brands, specific boat types from an SEM standpoint. So yes, that's going to be a major focus for us.
Awesome. And last question I'm seeing for now is that folks have been reading the article in Trade Only about subscription rate hikes from other marketplaces. So does Boatmart plan to go down a similar route? And what is your thoughts on that?
A similar route into like our pricing structure. I guess I don't completely understand that question. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. We can also follow up after as well. Yeah, that was the only clarity I'm seeing here.
What, can you read that again? I want to see if I can take one more stab at that.
Perfect. Yep. So we've been reading the article on Trade Only about subscription rate hikes from other marketplaces. And does Boatmart plan to go down a similar route?
No, so from a rate hike standpoint, I think if I'm understanding the question, they want to know if, they join us, if they're going to continue to see, substantial rate hikes year after year. I think rate rises are, actually, let me take a step back. So that's, Boats Group is owned by private equity. And when you deal with private equity, they're always going to want to, turn a very high growth rate year after year and usually sell in 4 to 5 years, right? And so that growth rate is crazy high during those 4 or 5 years, and they're going to squeeze their customers out of everything they can. And that's, that's what's happening, unfortunately. We are not owned by private equity. And so that's the good thing with our company. When you look at businesses as a whole, rate rises and increasing rates it's part of the business, right? Is there going to be anything like you're seeing right now? No. There's, when you look at the pay per lead model, and the reason we went to that is because we want to be partners with you guys. We want a long-term relationship, and we want it to be fair for both sides. And moving to a pay per lead model makes it fair for both sides. You guys are paying for what you get, and we need to deliver as much value as we possibly can. So I think that's where you're going with the question, and the answer is no.
Awesome. I think that's a great way to end it. I'm not seeing any more questions. Any final thoughts from you, Chris, as we wrap up?
No, I'm happy to do any follow-up after this. If there are some other questions, I think we might be able to share my contact info when we follow up with an email after this. And I'm happy to dive in a little deeper if any of you would like to. And I love talking to dealers, and I'm happy to do so anytime.
Awesome. Sounds great. We'll be sure to add your contact info to the follow-up. Well, thank you, everybody. With that, I'll go ahead and wrap up this webinar. But again, thanks for your time today, and I hope everybody has a great rest of the day. Take care.